All right. Well, we're gonna go over from the last meeting. We'll talk a little bit about Overwatch, and then yeah, we'll try to keep it short right now. But then, James, we can gladly talk later too. So from last season, at the end of the last season, um, we had talked in the advisory council about not probably being able to do Overwatch due to Blizzard's crazy restrictions. And then I think in the coaches meeting, Nate had said something about maybe trying to do it dark mode. We are going to try not to do anything dark mode at all. We're going to try to do everything legal as we can because it's just not a IEN. We also belong to a interstate. You guys like what's the acronym stand for? You guys have to tell me. I don't even know. What?
Interstate Esports Alliance, I believe it is,
Thank
ISEA.
you. Yeah. So, and they work on different deals and stuff with companies and kind of pass different deals down to the organizations. So we have to be compliant and stay with whatever the companies are wanting us to do. Sucks. Nobody likes it, but they have a little bit harder restrictions on stuff than League even did with Riot. So basically, a 2 week versus a 1 week kind of stipulation in there, but I can share details with that if anybody wants those. I can send those to you. But we will not be able to do that. We can do with Overwatch though is still do some one-off tournaments and stuff like that. You are also as teams, you're allowed to contact each other and do scrims, anything you like with that. We just can't actually run an official league. So, but we definitely want to um, do some tournaments. So, anything else? Anybody else wants to say about that to Overwatch that we had talked about?
So, Ben, the idea that my coach and I had was that we might run, let's say, 4 tournaments throughout the year. But we just wanted to gauge whether or not people were actually going to play Overwatch. We don't want to try to
Right.
organize tournaments that are one-off, right? Because that's
Mm-hmm.
the rule, capped by the number of teams, all that good stuff. We don't
Right.
want to do that if nobody's going to play it.
Correct.
So that's the primary question I have is, are there still teams wanting to play?
And then I think too is if there's too many, how coming up with a plan of how you'd organize it because you can only have 8 teams.
Right, right. It'd have to be.
Too. So
We'd have to figure out who gets to play which one, and
right.
we try to get people playing. But we're almost for sure going to end up Valorant.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we think.
Right.
But we don't want to abandon it
Right.
because next week Blizzard might.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and is hopefully we'll see what happens with Overwatch 2. We have no idea, what they're gonna do. I have no idea why they're even putting these stipulations in play, anyways. But who knows? So
Yeah, so James's suggestion might be like do kind of what the league would do, engaging interest, make a Google form and put it in the Discord and just ask, like, hey, I
right,
mean,
yeah,
The big thing
no, I
is how
mean,
you advertise it as well. Like
right,
if you make it public on Twitter, anybody in the state can just randomly, like a group of 12 or 13-year-olds can just randomly make a team. They don't have to be from Indiana high schools.
yeah,
They can just join. So depending on how you publish it and advertise it, that's a big way of how many teams you're going to get. Which trying to get your 8 teams in, I wouldn't think you'd publicly advertise it anyway. You would just do it in the Discord or Google Form or something like that. So
yeah. I mean, the Overwatch
You would be
channel's
able to do.
still there. The Overwatch channel's still there. I would put it out in Overwatch, and you say, is there any who would be interested if we did, do some X amount of tournaments or something?
Yeah, the server looks
Um,
a little bit different. We do have titles that are now organized under like the community open section, and yeah, you're totally welcome to post anything you want about like throwing your own tournaments for those. We would be happy to like assist you getting that information
hmm
out.
for sure.
We as an entity though can't legally go and run Overwatch competitions that don't follow those guidelines though because of the liability meetings. Uh, Essentially what you have to realize is the reason companies do this is because these games are their valuable assets and they are looking for new avenues to monetize these
Correct. Yeah.
assets as teenagers are getting more involved in like structured esports.
So it sucks, but yeah, I would definitely post something in there, James, for sure, and see what we
Yeah,
can get going.
we'll do that and just kind of gauge where people are. I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. Yep.
Yeah. No problem.
cool. So that was the last meeting follow up.
Yeah.
June meeting was real short because everyone wanted to get into summer and move on. So that was pretty much what we had. New business is a lot of stuff, and we're going to try to go through things methodically, maybe slightly quickly, but still in enough detail that hopefully helps. If we're going too fast, I guess just kind of utilize chat in particular, because that might be the easiest way to get thoughts out there that we can cover. The first one, arguably the biggest, but maybe not, we'll see how things go, is if you didn't see that Nate stepped down as executive director of IEN, he announced, and that was finalized. So we're in a transition period between what leadership looks like in a leadership structure. So we're all really thankful for Nate and the way that he led ISIN and what he did. And you can ask him, part of the reason he's stepping down is because he wants to see IEN grow, and he didn't think it could happen with his presence still here. So like that's what we're looking to do, is kind of take the structure and tweak it and change it so that it makes sense, and allows us to grow in a way that we might not have under the previous structure. So that being said, the new leadership structure you see here is different from what it was. So before there was staff, which used to be advisory council before they were staff, and then transitioned into a staff role, who kind of functioned like the decision-making body with Nate. So they were involved in all those sorts of planning and decision-making meetings, and kind of ran the league as title runners, coming up with rules and all those sorts of things. The advisory council was a group of us who provided input, but was kind of nebulous in a lot of ways, trying to figure out what our role was. So what we're doing is we're transitioning into a board of directors, which in some ways is analogous to what the staff position was. The staff members are rolling up into the new board of directors, and this will be the legal board of directors for the organization as well. So per laws in Indiana and across the country for nonprofit organizations, we have to have a certain number of officers in board of director positions and all those things. So they will be the legal directors of the organization. The competition council is taking the place of the advisory council, kind of morphing into a group that is more focused on providing feedback on rule changes, on competition decisions, kind of optimizing the way that the league itself is run. And they will provide recommendations to the board of directors, who will make the final decision. That's kind of for two reasons. One, it's to make sure that the legal responsibility falls on the board of directors and not the competition council. So all of the legal decision making happens at the board level, which means if we screw anything up, it's our fault, but not the competition councils. And the other thing is so that competition council does remain focused, and it's not a blanket time commitment of meeting every month. It's when things need to happen, they happen. So I, as president of the advisory council, was invited and affirmed into a board of directors role. So I'm transitioning into that. The advisory council members last night at our meeting agreed to put their names forward for affirmation into the inaugural competition council. And we'll cover when we get to the bylaws and general rules part. But basically what that requires from us as members at large of the organization is just an affirmation vote. So we can talk about that now and maybe do it when we get to the bylaws part. But I believe most of those advisory council members who are transitioning to the competition council are here. So we can highlight those names for you. But that's basically the process. If anyone wants to be a competition council member, they can submit their names, and then they'll be voted on for approval. And if somebody wants to submit their name for board of directors, that's the same. So both of those are outlined in the bylaws and general rules as the process for adding to those groups. So again, we're kind of functionally aligning with how nonprofits should be organized and making the titles make more sense in terms of what the roles and responsibilities actually are.
I think the big change you're going to see too there is it won't just be, we're not trying to replace a new Nate or anything like that, and you're not going to see just one person running everything. You're going to see a group of people trying to make decisions on this as a group instead of just one person. So hopefully that will make more sense and be more transparent to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just like highlight who that is again for people. So like the new board of directors will be myself, and then if the others want to kind of speak up so they can see your faces.
Ben Underwood.
Dylan Gentlecore.
Nick Parcell.
Nathan Saul.
And I don't
And
think
yeah,
Kristen's here.
yeah, Kristen also. And then the
one quick thing I wanted to point out, the board of director, like we've made pretty clear what is involved there with the operation of IEN. Competition council, if you want like the shortest possible definition of it that I can give that made sense to me, it's like a group focused on giving us feedback and advisement on competitive integrity and equity. So it's not just about the nuts and bolts of trying to come up with rules and stuff, but looking at the league and the way that it's working. Are we providing a fair environment for students all across Indiana?
Yeah. All demographics and different size schools and stuff like that. So
the former advisory council members who were transitioning to the competition council, if you just wanted to, I guess, introduce yourselves as well, real quick, so people will know who they're voting yes or no for the inaugural competition council.
Hi, I'm Trevor Smith here. Hi.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stegemiller.
Anthony Harder.
And Rick
is not. He just messaged me.
Here. Okay.
He actually did. His family just got in a car accident, so he said everybody's good, but he is not going to be here tonight. So
okay. So also Rick is up on the ballot for competition council as well. So yeah, I figured we'd transition to the bylaws and general rules. Oh, Nick as well. There's Nick.
Say Nick's in here, isn't he? Somewhere. Yes, there he is.
Yeah, he just typed in chat. There you go.
Walk right now.
So yeah, Nick is also transitioning into the competition council.
Okay, great. If we want to take a look at the bylaws and general rules, like you said, Joe, can you go ahead and pull those up on your screen share?
I can, if I can remember which of our subfolders they're in. Got it.
So you should be able to just click on the thing too, right?
And we are trying to do a better job of getting out information to you. We have consolidated a lot of our resources into Google folders, and we've started to send you links to those folders, and we're adding more materials to those. So, for instance, if you looked at the Discord announcement or the email that I sent out on Monday, same content, just two different places to check it. It did have a link to a registration folder that has helpful materials. In that folder today, I added some additional materials for those of you who wanted things like a sample code of conduct, or maybe you would like a spreadsheet to help take player attendance in for practices and matches. Little things like that I've added in there, and anyone is welcome to contribute to that. The board of directors, every member has direct access to it, but if you have something from your school that you've produced that you think other schools would find helpful as they try and create materials, especially our first-time coaches, or even coaches who are trying to improve things this year, please feel free to pass those on to us, and we can put those in there as either templates or samples. But as we look at this, the bylaws and general rules, I just want everyone to realize that we really just went through and cleaned a lot of this up quickly and made changes where necessary. I would consider this like a first draft of a new legal document. That's why it's the bylaws and the general rules. This is something that we are adhering to from both like an accountability sense, spirit of the rule and competition, but also from a legal sense. But we aren't fully married to the language that we have here. So if anything seems a little bit unclear, or like we could add more to it to create that specificity, that's also on our minds as well. So the main things that have changed, if we look at the bottom of this first page, the board of directors, we tried to outline exactly what that process is for being part of the board and what they're involved in. As we continue to flesh out the board of directors and sort of grow into this new governing role, we do want to make it clear who is responsible for what within the organization. So, for instance, I already said earlier, like, hey, I sent you out an email and I put in a Discord announcement. That's along the lines of communication. I'm someone who, in my current role from Wisconsin, not being as deeply integrated into the Indiana system as I once was, I'm trying to help with sending out that communication more and more. Kristen, for example, is looking to run Unified specifically. So we're trying to come up with dedicated tasks and roles for our members. That way they have like a meaningful thing to accomplish while they're working for the organization. The Competition Council, on the other hand, we have like I said, focus that reined in that responsibility. You are no longer just like participating in another Google Meet right before this one the night before, which really felt like a burden rather than something that allowed you to contribute more. We want the Competition Council to feel like they can go into their channel in the Discord server and talk about the issues that they think are affecting competitive integrity and equity in our league, and giving us the feedback, the notes that we need to make better decisions. And if we have any questions or any initiatives that we want to tackle, we can go to them with those and get the responses that we need. The Competition Council, we outline the process for that as well. Basically, at the beginning of every semester, you will have the opportunity to nominate yourself or another person as well as a vote. And it's a very simple majority to get onto the Competition Council from anyone that's in attendance. Being appointed to the board is voted on by the current board. So if you were someone who was interested in coming onto the board and helping us by fulfilling certain roles that need to be done, we would just take a simple vote, and 3/5 vote would get you onto the board. Looking down as we continue to go through this, like I said, a lot of this was just cleaning up language. Former English teacher here, so trying to go through and proofread, spell check as I make my way through this document. I believe the next largest changes were revolving around
It's under the school team types.
the school team times and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we added some links and everything, but if we, yeah, go down to the school team types, that's where we see some additional language that will hopefully help clear things up for people about varsity, junior varsity, and club. Um, we once again are adhering to the rule that we created last year when we introduced the varsity JV system, that your varsity team members are people who play in 50% or more of those matches in the season. We're sort of strengthening that rule in a sense. Once again, if you have JV players that you bring up as subs, great. We love that. We think that's probably the best system to have. Dedicated varsity subs is kind of like a I had a kid who was in this position last year, and he was like, "Yeah, that's kind of like a dead role. Like you're not going to get much playing time." However, being a starter on JV does give you the option to be that pinch sub for varsity as long as you're not playing in over half of the games in the season. Now, what we wanted to do for playoffs is make sure that we're saying you had to have started and played in at least 50% of the matches in the regular season before roster lock, which is right before playoffs. And if you are going to bring up a JV player, that needs to be a legitimate JV player who played a lot of the JV games, at least 3/4 of the games. If that's the case, you should have a lot of flexibility. So we wanted to add some clear language to make sure that this was an enforceable rule that people could adhere to and that we could check, but wasn't one that felt so limiting that, let's say you have some varsity players, it's now the end of the season, we're in April, you're trying to get your kids into that playoff run to compete at the state championship, and you have a varsity player who says, you know what, I can't do it. My parents are making me quit to get a full-time job, heading into the summer. Okay, well that's terrible, but your team isn't doomed. You can pull up that JV player and continue your season. Club, remember that you can have an unlimited number of club teams. They cannot be on varsity or junior varsity rosters. We may look at that rule soon to see if there's some way that we can word it fairly so that maybe if you need a pinch or emergency sub for JV, a club player could step in. But the real thing that we want to focus on is, once again, if you are new to IEN, especially ISON in particular, because IMSON doesn't really do this whole system, you start out at the club level, and you will be allowed to access the varsity level in any game after your first semester. So that's something that we want to make clear. If you are a team that just joined, you have to be in club your first semester. Second semester, as long as you don't have any violations, if you didn't have excessive forfeits, then you will be allowed to enter a varsity roster in any title of your choosing. I think other than that, we don't have any big changes along the lines of the general rules and bylaws. This is something that we do want you to look over again. We will notify you of any changes that we make that are not just like wording or something along the lines, but you must agree to these as part of your rechartering process so that we can have accurate, updated information for each of the schools and the support staff managing the programs.
And speaking of chartering, did you want to bring the charter up real quick, whoever's controlling?
I think Joe's driving.
Okay. This is very similar to what you've seen in the past if you've chartered before. With the transition and leadership, we have realized that there's some things that maybe have been lost in the shuffle as far as emails and communication and school documents. And so we're asking that every school charters again this year, and that will help us make sure that we have an accurate list of who is in IEN. And that's just going to be beneficial for us all. It's going to make sure that you get the emails, going to make sure that we're able to communicate with everyone effectively. And so you can see the charter, very simple to fill out. It does need to be on the second page. You see it needs to be filled out by or signed by your principal also. This is just making sure that things are on the up and up. One question we did have from a couple middle schools that were onboarding. Yes, if your middle school and your high school have different principals, then we do need to have two different charters, one from each building per se or principal. Once you have that filled out, then you can submit it in the form. And that form is what is asking you for your contact information, school name, organization name, your name, email, also your Discord username, or whoever the coach is. And if there are multiple coaches, you can put those down, I suppose. The principal name, principal email, and then use that school enrollment chart right there to figure out what the size of your school is. That is from the DOE. And then this is where you would actually upload the file then of your signed charter and submit it then at that point.
Yeah, and if you can click on these links here, so you don't have to go find them other places if you need to get them here. They're both linked, the charter and the bylaws.
Yeah, and then one question we have received a lot of is with the student forms, the student permission forms. In the past, that was always a thing. I think that was kind of said, need to fill this out, and then at some point you were going to turn them in. Never quite worked right. So there is no requirement for you to turn in any student forms to IEN. However, we do always encourage you to have some sort of form to help yourself out and to cover your own bases. That way you make sure you truly have parent permission to have that child involved in your organization. But that is not anything that we are going to collect as an organization this year.
Okay, so that should move us right into registration and how that's looking for the fall. So before we get into how to actually register, we are going to post some information on help sessions where we'll be in a Google Meet call or one of the Discord channels in the Discord, just available an hour or two a night for anybody to pop in and ask their questions for registration. As Dylan was saying earlier, we're trying to compile all of the registration, title rules, forms, links, all that kind of in a common place, so you don't have to go hunting through the Discord or anything like that for it. So in Dylan's email earlier this week, there was a link for all the registration links as well as our registration folder, which is now pulled up. So the main thing that I would look at is the Am I Registered checklist. So we try to make a checklist this year of what all you need to do in order to basically confirm that you are registered. And just a subtle note, we do have a hard deadline of September 16th for the registration. No exceptions on that, just because of the scheduling that has to take place. So like Nick was talking about, you have to submit your charter and your bylaws and general rules to the Google form. You just need to read the bylaws and general rules. The charter covers that you read it and charters your school. Your student forms, again, optional, but we do encourage you fill those out and keep them on file just to cover your own bases. Acknowledge that the hard deadline to register is September 16th, 2022 at midnight. And then we just included check boxes with links to every single title, whether that be for the Google Forms for the 4 competition or the tournament titles, or the UGC links for the other titles. So if you do everything on this checklist, you should be pretty well off, that you've confirmed that your school is registered. Joe, can you pull up the registration links doc? So this doc that he's pulling up right now is just a compiled list of every single link that you will need for every single division. It is worth noting that we are missing a few links on here. iRacing is still being worked out, so we'll get that registration link to you as soon as we can. Rules and title, and then I think I'm missing Club Valorant, but I'll grab that link and throw it on here after the meeting is concluded. So.
Hey, I made it. It's there somewhere.
Yeah, no, I just didn't put the link on there. So, but it should be real easy. Also in that same folder, the registration folder, there is some YouTube videos and some PDFs on how to make your students' accounts for UGC, your coach account for UGC, and register. It's worth noting that high school teams will have to register their coaches and their teams. They all need accounts. Middle schools only need their coach to have an account. No student accounts are needed. So. I think I covered everything there. I know there's probably going to be questions, but we'll get to those when we get to the end here.
If you look at that I'm registered, though, that should be super helpful, I feel. So it's definitely got most everything right there that you need in one spot. So you already went over everything you want for title rules.
Yeah.
Are we doing anything with there?
Well, yeah, title rules are the same. They're in a title rules folder that I believe Dylan linked. Again, just trying to compile everything that, so it's in one place. The hope is that this folder will never change. It'll be where you go always to get the rules and get the updated rules. Again, all rules are in there besides iRacing, still working on that, but all the title rules are updated in there. I know we had someone point out that the chess rules were different from the calendar. The calendar is always correct. The rules had a typo in it, so we changed that to Tuesday instead of Monday. So, but all your title rules are in one place.
If you guys do look through the rules, though, and you see something that looks like it's not off like that, so like that was brought to our attention. Otherwise, we probably would have missed it. We didn't change that. So.
Yeah. And another thing I just thought of too is Ben has actually gone through this morning, and in the Discord, in each game category, there's a rules and resources section that will also have the most updated rules in the channel. No one can type in it; they won't get buried. It's a good place to find them as well.
It'll always be right there. So, so I think what's next on the list? We have Minecraft. I think next.
Minecraft. Yeah.
So with Minecraft, we're going to change a little bit. Nate was kind of the driving force there as far as how it was going to work this year. And so we really don't have the setup structured of how we wanted to run it. So I think it's going to be shifted to some like one-off tournaments, and there'll be more probably like bed wars and stuff like that. We haven't really. That's the tournament council. They'll be able to work on that for sure, and help us a little bit with that too, make suggestions of maybe for that. But I know we'll do some bed wars tournaments and things like that. So Minecraft will be changing and won't be a big build challenge this time. It'll be more of push to a something like we'll do with like Overwatch and things like that. So anything else about Minecraft that we can think of right now?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, frankly, we have a lot to do on the back end with like legal documents and transitions and all these things. So like it's a bandwidth thing, really. It kind of stinks, but I mean, it's just the honest truth.
Right. So then tournament titles, Fortnite, chess, Tetris, and iRacing. Those are all up as far as the rules there. I think there's links in there currently. Do we have the Tetris link in the?
It's in the meeting doc and in the registration link.
Can you bring up the meeting doc again, Joe, real quick? I know Fortnite and chess are there.
Yeah. So all your tournament titles are going to be Google Form links. They will not be on UGC.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. So those four right there, you won't have to sign up for those on UGC, and you'll notice too if in that I'm registered thing, it has off to the side whether it's a Google form or it's UGC. So those ones will be a Google form. Most of those are more all of our kind of single titles. So if you look at the calendar, each day you're going to see at the top. There's going to be a title, which is more of our team based, and then there's a solo or um, kind of 1v1 ish type title underneath of that, and that's these four right here: Fortnite, chess, Tetris, and iRacing. With those, they're each a little bit different, so definitely look at the rules. But pretty much across the board, there you're allowed five. They're classless. They're all classless. So there's not a 1A, a 2A, and a 3A. There's not a JV and a varsity or anything like that, or club or anything. It's all together. Those you're allowed usually per school 5 kids to compete each week in those. I'll talk about Fortnite a little bit because I have to figure out with Fortnite. We're going to start with 4 per school. It's going to depend on how many schools sign up for Fortnite. I'm only allowed 99 people in a basically in a battle royale. And I have to be in there too. So now we're down to 98. You can rotate players. I think Nate can talk about chess there, but I'll talk about Fortnite a little bit. With Fortnite, how it's going to run is I'll run on Wednesday nights. We'll have 2 battle royales. We'll do a build battle royale, excuse me, and a non-build battle royale. You're allowed 5 in the first one, 5 in the second one. Those can be 5 of the same kids, or you could rotate kids in and out of there. I could put 3 that go from both over there. Okay, 5 or 4. We're gonna do 5 right now, Andrew. But I think it's going to be fluid a little bit with Fortnite. It's going to be a little trickier to figure out. We're going to try to do 5 and see if we can do that. It's going to depend on how many people register. So once I get the data in from the people signing up those Google forms, I'll probably put out some more information on that. Okay. So yeah, for Fortnite, yeah, I've got 66. Andrew. So, so yeah, I feel you. So with that, I would have some rotation probably or something within your kids. So that week when Dylan's kind of laughing, there's you know, if you got kids that are really good at builds, have them do the builds. If you have good at non-builds, have them do the non-builds. How that will work is we'll have a champion that's a build champion, a non-build champion, and then an overall build champion or an overall champion, which will get stuff together. So hit me up with Fortnite though if you need any of that. I don't know if you want to touch anything, Nathan, with chess.
Yeah,
Tetris
yeah, I'll
there.
touch really quick. So Kristen's going to still be running Tetris, and it's very similar to the scoring on chess. I can speak for chess. I can't speak for the other titles that I have had coaches have more than 5 players in. They can only field 5 per week, and the final score will only be the top 5 scoring players from their school will count towards their team, and then they'll all count. Well, the top 5 will count towards the individual. So yeah, you can have as many extras as you want. It would be helpful if you let me know beforehand, so I can kind of edit the spreadsheet, the scoring spreadsheet, to make sure we can account for that. But it's completely fine to have extras. So
yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing with Fortnite. I'll ask in that each week if you'll submit your 5 kids to me. So
and thinking about that now, I will probably go ahead and edit the chess form to allow up to 10, and then you'll just field your top 5 for registration. So
yeah, I think I've got 10 listed. I think in the Fortnite that you can list player wise, but it's also got a section you can put in more kids. So
yeah, and both of these registration forms are linked in the meeting notes and all that, but they're also in this folder here in the registration folder as well. At the top, the chess, Tetris, and Fortnite registration.
It's also right
there. And iRacing. Yeah. Yep. So lots of.
I'll double check
with
Kristen and see if she's okay with doing that with Tetris, and we'll add more spots to Tetris on the registration end as well.
Yeah, I know Fortnite's going to be a rough one. I know we're going to have certain schools are going to have a ton of kids, other ones are not. Also, just so you guys know, if you look at the calendars, it's only for high school this season for Fortnite. Middle school is the second season. So if you do have a middle school team, it'll be second season, which my middle school kids are not happy, but we'll figure it out.
I would say for those of you who are still trying to conceptualize what the nights look like, especially if you've never done this before, think of it as, we're competing 4 nights a week. You can compete in as many or as few titles as you would like, but on each night you'll have the option of participating in a team sport like video game, with 3v3 or 4v4 or 5-on-5, and then you'll also have the option of fielding a roster for something that is more like cross country, right? Where it's all these different sizes of schools lumped into one big competition, and you're able to field 4 or 5 kids from your school out there, and how each individual student performs will earn your team points for that particular night. And that's pretty much standard across the board for all of the 4 titles: chess, Tetris, iRacing, and Fortnite.
I think it's everything with that.
All right, then we'll go ahead and talk about crew battles. So
Yeah,
crew
just real quick.
battles.
So like
Oh,
we mentioned on the calendar a lot, it is updated on the website too. So we've been making changes on the website as well. So if you ever like, oh, I can't find all this junk, the website will have some of that public facing info too that you can go to and find.
yeah. So if someone wants to go ahead and drop a link to the calendar page of the website, that'd be great. It's a little disruptive if I do it while I'm running the recording of the meeting. But yeah, definitely trying to improve our offerings on the website as well. So if you're thinking like, man, it's really annoying to try and go through my emails or Discord to find some of these resources like the calendar or some of the other things they've promised for us, um, we're definitely in agreement with you, and we're looking to get more things on the website so that you can just bookmark them and go right to them. So crew battle, here's like a nice GIF if you need help conceptualizing it. You see, I know Nick likes to, Politano, he likes to think of it in terms of like a Pokemon battle, where you send out your first Pokemon, and if they live, they keep fighting. If they lose, you send out your next one. And that's essentially what we have with crew battles. We're going to send out, each team's going to have 4 players rostered, ready to go, and you will send out your first players against one another, and then they will have 3 stocks. As one player loses their stocks, they will rotate out. The next player on the team will come in. Let's say they went against an opponent that lost 2 stocks. Before that second member of crew 1 goes in and the first member of crew 2 goes in, that crew member will start on crew 2, will jump off the stage twice. That way they only have that 1 stock. They don't have to match the same percentage they ended the previous bout at, and then they will play from there. So we hope that this adds a better team element, a better strategic element for those who want to bring your players together for Super Smash Brothers and make it feel less isolated. But it's also going to be easier on coaches to run because we're not constantly communicating picks or stage bans or anything of that nature. So it should be much less troublesome for our coaches. The issues that we deal with Smash are always going to be there in terms of like potential lag or whatever, but that is mitigated because it's less of like, oh, I'm 1v1ing this person in a best of 3, and if I lose out valuable points for my team. And then there's also times where we know with the point structure, there were times where that match felt like it didn't matter. The match could have already been decided because 4 people lost on your team, and now your 5th player is going up, and if they win, you don't get any points that could swing the matter. So it feels really bad for them. So we're trying to eliminate all of those problems that we faced with the previous system. I know people are going to miss 1v1s. That's something that we care about deeply. We are continuing to try and work with colleges and the schools that want to run 1v1 tournaments and get you that information, whether it's online or in person. We're going to continue looking at ways to facilitate good, healthy, in-person 1v1 competition for all of those players. But yeah, our goal for this year is to implement this crew battle format, which is becoming more and more popular with collegiate leagues, like NACE and NECC, as well as other high school leagues across the country. The rules for that are updated. They're available to you. I hope it does a great job of explaining this, but essentially each player fighting each other one-on-one, but once you lose your stocks, you rotate out to the next person on your team and continue fighting in that set. As we move through the sets, right, coaches can shuffle the player order, but you still have to let us know who your very first player is, and tell your opponent what fighter they're choosing. That way, there's no counter picking at the beginning of the round. I'm not put at a disadvantage. Like, let's say I was going against Ben's team, and he tells me, well, my guy's going to lock in Roy, and then I go back and I talk to my player, and I come back and I say, okay, well, my guy's going to lock in Pikachu. Like, we have to both disclose together, Roy, Pikachu. Okay, see you out there. After that, though, it's fair game. My second player knows that their guy plays Roy. He can now, like, as he's sitting there watching his teammate lose to that Roy, he can think like, man, who am I going to play that's really good against this Roy? Right? That mindset. If you scroll down real fast, we can just cover stages very briefly. We will have weekly starter stages so that it's very simple. Going into week 1, you just need to set the arena to have Pokemon Stadium 2 as the stage. And then the person who lost the first set, they will have the option to pick the second stage. There's the stage list. It's very simple. So if you're that week 1, you play on PS2, your team lost, okay, what do you want to do for the second game? It looks like you can do Pokemon Stadium 2, Battlefield, Hollow Bastion, or Small Battlefield. Those are your options. Short, simple, to the point. Hopefully it keeps people going and coaches aren't as stressed out on Super Smash Bros. Night, especially if you're running multiple rosters.
And so just to touch on something too that, I think Dylan said, but you do not, like before we used to rank our kids number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on. You can still rank your kids that way. However, you're not required to say, hey, this is my first kid I'm going to put up. This is my second kid I'm going to put up. You can save your top player until the end, or you can put your top player in the middle, or you can put them in first. It's strategic now. So,
yeah.
Can I ask a question based on that?
Yeah, go for it,
Yeah.
Tucker.
So let's say we have like 6 kids that are interested in playing, like, so we have substitutes available and stuff.
Mhm.
Could we kind of pick as we go? So if like we get to like the last round and we've got, I was planning on having kid A fight, but then like kid B didn't play last week, and it's like, oh, I think this would be interesting if we can we change that up, like out of like kind of pick the 4 as we go, or do we lock in which kids go in which order and it stays that way?
So this is something that might need to be clarified in the rules. I'd have to take another look at the wording, but our intention is that you roll with that first 4, and then in between sets you'd make substitutions.
Okay, so you choose your set of 4 kids. You'd play until the 4th kid on the losing team is done, and then you choose another set of 4 and do another set like that.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so you're not rotating. You don't have like a pool of 6. You have a pool of your 4, and then
Yeah.
you between matches.
But those 4 can be
Gotcha.
placed anywhere you want in your lineup.
Correct.
Okay,
So-
so if we have a player that is playing like a zoner character that might be better in an earlier match than we were expecting, we could say, oh, now you do here instead of, so they can choose their character as long as it's not the first match. They can choose their character, and we can choose when they go in as long as it's in that set of 4.
Yeah, only on the first match we have to declare characters. If I were to play K. Rool and I beat your player, and you have a guy who's really good against K. Rool, put him up.
Gotcha.
There you go. So
even if going into it, that guy was planning, you were having him plan to be your anchor, and he was like, you're like, oh, you're gonna be our 4th guy to go up, but then he sees the K Rool come out, and he's like, hey, put me in now. I think I can take the K Rool and swing the momentum here. You have the option to do that. UGC did have settings for 4v4 crew battles, so we're going to meet with them tomorrow. I'm hoping that it's as simple as in UGC, like with other games, you can set your 4 starters and then list your 2 subs. That way we don't have to do any sort of, every week you're disclosing your roster. It would be just as simple as, making sure it's correct on UGC, and then, that you have that transparency there.
Gotcha.
And just to clarify, those 2 subs can be swapped out right before the match if one of my kiddos, can't stay and I thought he could. So they're expected to be at the match in case one of my 4 can't go. But once the match starts, my 4 are locked in and must finish the entirety of the match. The 2 that were subs, once our match starts, they cannot be subbed into play.
Gotcha.
In
that
that
the-
set.
correct?
In that set, yes, not the whole match.
So
Right,
if
'cause
we go to-
everything is best of 2. So you're playing 2 crew battles
yeah,
on a week.
gotcha. So in the first crew battle, we have 4. But you're saying I can pick from any of my 6 for the second crew battle.
Yep.
Yeah, it gives you some flexibility.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can pick for any of your 6 from the first crew battle if you want to, too. If you don't want to start
Right.
your main starters and you have one kid that doesn't show up, you can put a sub in your first one, too. I
Gotcha.
don't even think in the rule set we have disclosure that you have to give us their, like, do we have to give names, Dylan? I'm like, you know how we used to have to, like, give our lineups?
It would be the same thing as like any of our other titles. If you're making a substitution, like
Yeah, at least
using
let
your
your
subs
you
on
know.
yeah, in your starters, and maybe that's something that we
courteous, yeah.
can add to the general rules in total, or like we just need to make sure we clean up in the title specific rules. But yeah, it's the same thing. You know, if it's League of Legends and I have my 5 starters and 2 subs on UGC, but I know my support player can't make it and I'm putting in my sub for that role, I would let the other team know in advance, and it's the same thing. Sometimes in advance means like, hey, it's 5 o'clock and my kid ghosted me after school today.
Right.
I'm gonna have to reprimand them tomorrow, but tonight this is the person I'm putting in. That's totally fine. It's just like we don't like that surprise element of like, oh, we're now to the 3rd fighter on the set, and one of their subs is going in. I didn't know that was going to happen. That's what we're trying to avoid. So language pertaining to that can definitely be added.
Clarification on the JV subbing. So I've got my 6 guys. They're all present. That means that I cannot sub a JV player in. Is that correct? Or I could still sub my JV player in, even though I have my varsity 6, because I want to.
Well, in that scenario, what we usually do is we ask you to have the JV players listed as a sub, and that's so any JV players that you would put on your varsity team as a sub, they would roll up there in the sub role, but they wouldn't count as one of your 6 varsity slots, right? So when I look at your UGC, you may have, let's say, 8 Smash players listed. 6 of them are varsity, 2 of them are JV subs. Does that make sense?
So that what that means is, as long as they're JV, they can play half the matches of varsity, given that they played 2/3 of the JV matches, right? They have to actually play
They can't play 50% or greater.
Correct.
of the varsity matches.
Yes.
Yeah, or they're automatically then varsity.
Gotcha. So, but I could sub them in, let's say 3 times in the season, right? And say, hey, tonight's your lucky night, bud. You're going to go play varsity.
Yep.
So just to add one thing on top of that, I don't know if we made this clear in the rules. So let's say my player, the first player I send up is playing Luigi. He loses the stock, beats the other person out. He cannot switch characters going into the next game against the kid. He has to stay Luigi if he played Luigi. Now, when that crew battle is over, he can then switch characters going into the next set, but he cannot switch once he picks a character. He has to stick with that character.
Can I ask a question about getting to the right stocks then?
Yep.
This might be in the rules. I haven't gotten a chance to read it, so that might be my bad. But so how do we know when to kind of start the match if someone has to go and jump off the edge a couple times to lose stocks? Like, does it like as soon as they come back, it's go and they have a little bit of invincibility, or
it's after the invincibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it is Tucker. It is in the rules. It talks about not charging abilities and things like that.
I believe the other player is not allowed to move while that
Yeah.
person is off the stocks.
Yep,
okay,
you
gotcha.
have to reset the neutral. Yeah, if you're playing like Samus into it, like when that player jumps off the stage for their second stock or something, you can't like start charging up your Buster and like be ready to go, right? Like that is a total rule violation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think this should make it once everybody gets used to this, it should make it a lot smoother and stuff like that. I think the other thing that's big is that it also adds a lot of coaching element that didn't seem like it was there at all with the 1v1 stuff.
And it's a coaching element that's less tedious.
Right.
With that you just said about, Samus charging up while we're taking care of the 2 stocks that they lost, that could easily be an accidental thing that happens. right? Is there a consequence for that, or can we? Oh, I wasn't. Somebody's playing Steve and they started digging. Can
There's
we
going
just
to be a learning curve for the students for sure. Like
right?
just like the taunting and all that, there's going to be a learning curve. I think there's a
Like,
penalty in there.
tell them to
Yeah, Joe highlighted it.
jump off and then restart the match again to try to make it even, or
Yeah, if
one
it was
time you can
Steve digging
restart.
or something, we would do that. Yeah, we'd have to either reset the match again, or like let's say you are Samus and you charge it up, we'd ask you to turn
You
around
could
and
just
fire it off, and then
dispense it, yeah. But yeah, with like Steve digging, you would have to basically restart. Maybe have some kind of written in there like one time where we'll restart the match, but if it happens a second time, then it's like a stock loss or something. Or I don't know if we want to write something like that in the rules. I don't know.
yeah, the intention is like if you do it multiple times, like we just go to the next player, like you just forfeit your stocks.
Yeah, and that like those specifics would be great recommendations for the competition council to consider as one of their inaugural jobs. So, speaking
Trevor's
of
I
which,
can-
on it.
we
Trevor's
do need to
on.
actually vote on that. So,
Yeah, let's move on.
while we remember, and before we get to anything else, let's take a simple verbal vote on the competition council members that we introduced. So, if you're in favor of those 5 members, including the one who's not here, being a member of the competition council, vote aye verbally, please.
Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Opposed, vote
Aye.
no. Great. So we
Ayes
have
have it.
an official competition council as voted on by the members of IEN that will go in the minutes.
It
And
was a
then they
close
get
one,
to
Trevor.
continue
It was a
to-
close one. You made it, buddy.
So we'll tell Rick too that he got voted
I got
on.
him.
He,
I
he
got
was
him.
worried, so we'll let him know that he passed as well. And I think the only other thing on the agenda is we are going to transition to a new link for coaches meetings coming up, just so that we can do things like record and not have Dylan run OBS in the
Yeah.
background. So that will be coming out in Dylan's communication soon. So we'll make sure that's on Discord and emailed and all those things. So just make sure that you're on the lookout for that new link come next month, because if you come to this one, we won't be here.
Also, I feel like we do this a lot. Nick, is there anything else that you want to highlight from middle school? Because I know we seem to skip over middle school sometimes.
No, I think we're good. We're simple folk. We know what we're doing.
We're simple folk. So Knockout City, new though, right?
Correct.
So new title for this first season. So Knockout City is new. Fortnite will be new for next semester.
Yeah. So we could spend a lot of time talking about a lot of specifics, or we could allow you to come to these help sessions that we're going to have. Post in Discord if you need help or have specific questions. Tag the new competition council with things like the idea for getting in on the Smash Brothers rule sets for some specifics and things like that. That's what they're there for. Yeah, so like if there are broad questions that are for the good of everyone, you can type them in chat and we can kind of go through some of those. If you have specific questions or need help, we're going to encourage you to save those for a more individualized time during those help sessions.
Can I add one thing real quick, Joe?
Yes.
So we'll post when those like specific dates locked down for when those help sessions are actually going to be, so you know what times will be available. And then one thing, I don't want to go fully back to Smash, but just going to say real quick, me and Joe will, if anybody's confused, we'll be working on making a tutorial video of how a match is run, just so everybody can have that to view. So
hopefully next week.
I'll ask Shauna right there. Ask a question too about Fortnite. No, the Fortnite is really weird to. It's really weird to run and somewhat difficult, honestly. But basically, what'll happen is you'll look at the rules in there and stuff. It'll talk about the Discord. I will have a Fortnite Discord that I will invite people to. It'll be just for Fortnite. I'll have to post at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will post the first code, and the kids have until 5:15 to get in. I hit the start button at 5:15. If they make it, they make it. If they don't, they don't. Part of the time, my own kids will miss it because they don't put in the code right or whatever it is. But I'll post it exactly at 5:15. I hit the go button. As soon as that first round is over, I will post another code and we'll have another 15 minutes and then I'll start again. Um, and there will be technical issues. I already know it. I tested it out today with my kids. I think today I had 40 kids that showed up today just for an open play. And when I did the thing, I had 30 that got in. I still had at least 10 kids that couldn't get in just because of entering codes wrong or whatever it was. So it'll be a trial and error. But same kids play both lobbies each week, right? They can. Andrew, totally up to you as a coach. You could have 5 play in the builds, 5 different ones play in the no builds. Or you can mix however you want to do it. You got 5 kids you can throw in each one. Do however you want to do it. You just let me know.
And just to
Totally coaching.
And just to back up, to address a question about Shauna with are there set times for matches other than 5:30 for Fortnite? I wasn't sure if that was a question regarding all the things, but just a reminder to everyone, whether you're a new or returning coach, that our match times are 5 p.m. Eastern Time Standard. You do have the option to reach out to your opposing coach, try to at least do this 24 hours in advance, and schedule. We prefer you to try and reschedule within 60 minutes of that match time. This was something that, once you start competing against coaches, you get a feel for it. Like last season against Joe and Ben and Nick, like I developed sort of like an understanding of when their schools got out and what time it was good for them or reasonable for them to compete against, and vice versa. They probably understood like, oh, this is probably when Carmel's going to ask us to play us in Rocket League or something. So aim on being there and ready to play at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central Time for all of our matches. Fortnite is the only one that has a little bit more unique of a schedule due to what Ben outlined.
I think all the solo ones are a little bit more unique, right? Though, I mean, chess you have a certain time, right? I mean, they're all a little bit not as flexible as actually the team based stuff.
And
True.
middle school. So I was going to interrupt. Middle school start time is 4:30 Eastern.
I was going to jump in with that too. Yeah.
4:30 Eastern for middle school. Obviously, if a school needs to move it forward, backward, I mean, that's between the two coaches.
Yeah, with chess, Tetris, and iRacing, we try and get those started at those specific times rather than letting you reschedule just because so many schools are involved. We'll talk to Drew, who ran iRacing in the spring, about his vision for the upcoming year, but it's similar to what Ben deals with, where he tries to get all the drivers into Discord. He tries to do a pre-race meeting, talk about some issues that he might have seen in the previous week with cars hitting each other and everything, clean driving, and then he'll try to spin up that lobby as soon as he can.
Yeah. That's the same thing. Fortnite, I'll have a short meeting every single time, and I'll say the same things. The kids get tired of hearing the same thing every week, but I'll say the same things every week. Answer is Shauna, no. My kids weren't, because I'm in a public virtual school, so I don't have a lab. None of my kids are in my lab, so I'm a totally unique situation. So
to bring up something else too, sorry, I don't think we touched on this, was we're going to be working with UGC to change how club matches are done. Last year we did them through a Google form. This year you should, in theory, as long as UGC has this working right, be able to show up an hour before your match time, get in the queue, and then you would get matched against someone at 4 p.m. Central, 5 Eastern. Once you're in that queue, you're committed to showing up to that match, so you would receive some sort of penalty if you queued and then didn't show up. But if you don't have the students available for that night, you just wouldn't join the queue. So we'll get more information on that after we hear from UGC.
And for those of you wondering like what the penalties are, we're trying not to be intentionally vague about this, but the idea is for club matches, like honestly, because you are opting into the match so close to the match time, we are pretty harsh about those. If you know, forfeit more than once and you're a new school, you are not able to be eligible for varsity your next season. So you're going to go under another season or split of probationary. So let's say in the fall you had 2 or 3 club teams, and one of those club teams you had to forfeit twice. Well, your school's going to have to be on probation for the spring, just because we need to really crack down on any sort of forfeiting that takes place in our league. That's the number one thing like most esports leagues are struggling with, whether you're big paid leagues or smaller state-run leagues. everything in between is forfeits. We want to make sure that people are showing up to these matches with students from their school. That's the dream. And then in regards to a program that isn't like in the probationary phase, your team will potentially face, disqualification from the rest of the club split or season.
The only other big thing I can think of is, Nate was kind of that one single point person for everybody to tag on Discord, and it got real easy to do that. But like it's easy to tag the role or us as individuals. So if you need anything, still reach out. Don't let the fact that there's not one person to ping be a detriment. Just reach out, and there are more of us to be able to help you. So just that's my encouragement there. And unless anybody else has any big general things for the good of everyone, I mean, you're welcome to hang out for a minute or two. But like I said, look out for that schedule for the help sessions. I think that's going to be really useful for a lot of people. Just jump in and keep us company in a Discord call while you're registering, or if you need help, just let us know.